Welcome to the Stay Hungry podcast. Today, we are joined by Amanda Sima. Welcome.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I brought you on the podcast because you are someone that knows how to build and scale companies. For your background, you started from scratch your own clothing brand. Now you've scaled it to be crazy. Now it's like everywhere. And you patented your own product too. But as you and I both know, there's lots of ups and downs when it comes to having your own business and company. I guess to start things off, take us back to where this all started, like your own journey, why you did all of this, because it sounds very stressful to me personally, of why you started these two companies here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated from The Ohio State University in 2005. I majored in history thinking
Really?
thinking maybe I might go to law school. And I took one pre-law class and I was like, no, that's not for me. And so I was like, oh crap, I have a history degree. Like, what am I going to do with this? And so I sort of pivoted, didn't really know what career path I wanted to take. I had a history professor that was very influential on me. And just one day she's like, what are you going to do with this degree? And I'm like, I don't know. And I told her, hey, I'm interested in politics. Like, I've kind of always followed that. And she's like, oh, well, I have a contact at a campaign. At the time, there was a statewide governor's race in Ohio. And so I called up the campaign manager, got a job on the spot as a fundraiser, working on a statewide campaign. It was a really cool experience. But as a fundraiser, I met a lot of donors, wealthy people, a lot of them self-made, just like business owners. And
Right.
I'd kind of always been a creator, but never really manifested in my mind, like how you turn that into a career or like financial freedom until I met these individuals. And so that really inspired me to start my next business. I saw too many people just and heard their stories and just saw how they were their own boss. And I thought that was really cool. And so I continued on in politics for a while, but as a consultant, just kind of owned my own thing. I was my own boss, working with multiple clients. That was pretty entrepreneurial until, I really kind of had that aha moment for my apparel company. And I think if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they just have sort of that one moment or that one person or that scenario that inspired them to create something. And so in my case, big Ohio State fan, it's where I went to college. My whole family's Ohio State fans. And I had a grandmother who was just like a hoarder of Ohio State like merchandise. I mean, she had everything from like clothes to golf clubs to like anything you can think of, down to the smallest knickknack. And so one day I was in her basement and I saw a vintage Ohio State sweater from like the 80s. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And at the time, everyone was like t-shirts, sweatshirts, like there was no fashion in collegiate apparel. Definitely not the case now. But back then, there were only like a few really large players. And I thought, well, these would be really cool to design. And I can sell a lot of them because there's a lot of Ohio State fans and they're all buying something new every single year. So I kind of analyze the market, right? I'm like, is it a reliable revenue, even if it's seasonal, somewhat?
Right.
How reliable is that revenue? And so that's what turned me onto it. Because then I thought, well, Ohio State, then times 10 schools, then times 20 schools, those numbers get big pretty quickly. And so it was definitely a mix of just like being sort of passionate about bringing this product and like sort of solving this problem in this really sleepy industry to, the numbers can get really high and I can build like a really healthy business out of it. And so that was sort of my inspiration behind the apparel line. Grew that for 12 years. It was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of like, I don't have enough money. I had to raise money. I raised a couple rounds. That was new for me. By the time that I exited, we had a giant portfolio of licenses, tens of thousands of SKUs on Amazon. It really grew into a very complicated business. So I think I exited at the right time. I just didn't have the experience to run something that complex. And so, yeah, once I exited that business, again, just had another business idea that solved a problem. At the time, I had a 2-year-old daughter, and so toddler, and we were going out to dinner a lot. And everyone's familiar with sippy cups, so she has sippy cups at home. And when we would go out to dinner and they would bring her a cup, she would tip it up and spill, because that's what she's used to, and she doesn't know better, And I thought, I'm going to solve this problem. And so I went into plastics. I designed a spill-proof lid that I wanted to sell to restaurants or wholesalers that was designed only for kids. And this was around the time, it was just serendipitously around the time that the world was kind of going strawless. And so my lid definitely had a strawless option. I mean, you could use a straw if you wanted to, but the point was that, it had a sippy spout for little kids and then a straw slot for older kids. Best part of the invention is when you tip it over, the lid doesn't pop off, it doesn't spill. So it was like a spill-proof, disposable lid for kids. That is a product that, gosh, I was excited about, because again, if I get excited about a product, that's only half of the journey. Then you're like, are the numbers high? Is the volume high? What's the competition like, right? And so as I was designing it, even before I designed, I made sure I did as much research as possible to make sure, because it seems pretty, and I remember back then when I would tell people about the product, they're like, that already exists. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's common sense, right? But it did not exist. And so did my research. Again, I really thought, I knew that Alma Mater, the apparel line, could yield big numbers, but plastics is a whole other arena. And we're talking about, billions of usage of these things worldwide every year. Every year. This category is in the billions. Yeah. I mean, I ran all the numbers and like how many kids cups are sold at restaurants. And then if you add fast food into that, like, I just thought, wow, this is $1 billion idea. Like, this could really it could be the foundation for a plastics company if I wanted to do that, or just sell and, merchandise the product. And by the way, this is all business to business. I'm not even talking selling it to Target or getting on retail shelves, selling on Amazon. So I was really excited about this product, brought on an investor, and applied for a design patent, received the design patent, and really expected it to grow pretty tremendously. But my background, for your listeners, there was a hard stop in that moment. Unfortunately, a cautionary tale. At the time that I had finalized the product, I had tooling, I had a factory, we were ready to produce. I started sort of networking and trying to find sales reps who could help me find customers, just really help us get our foot in the door with some of these larger customers. And the short of it is internal things of mine, including the product and marketing materials, kind of got in the wrong hands. And within a few months of that, a multi-billion-dollar corporation had a copycat product in market and had copycat marketing materials in market. I mean, they were almost identical. And so I'm in a legal battle fight of my life right now against this corporation. Because obviously I'm claiming that not only did I design it first, that they legally could not just take what they were given and replicate it. It's a bummer because when that happened, I lost my investor overnight, and I was pretty much out of business. I mean, I don't know of any investor who would be interested from the ground level in competing with a company of that size. And also, I mentioned that I got a design patent on it. Well, design patents really don't fully protect your product.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if someone like, let's say, Matt, you design like some crazy novel headphones and you go get a design patent on them. Well, if a company likes your product and they want to replicate it, they can just design it a little bit differently. And if they can say, hey, a customer's looking at the two products and they can tell the difference, there's no patent case that you can't sue for that. Now, there's utility patents, which if you designed really cool headphones and they function a certain way, let's like noise canceling technology, let's say that you came up with that. Well, you get a design patent or a utility patent on that. That protects how your product functions. And this corporation got a utility patent on my design on how it functions. And so even if I wanted to compete with them in market and say my product's better, I'm legally precluded. I mean, they could sue me for patent infringement. And that's so when I found out they got a utility patent, that really put a fire under me to, lawyer up and like try to take back what's mine, because right now they're in market selling that. So
it's very pricey though, right, to do all of this?
It's insanely,
lawsuit and all that.
Yeah. I mean, patent litigation, if it were a patent case, which it's not, patent litigation is very expensive. I was just on another podcast just talking about the reforms that we need in the patent system that benefit smaller creators. You can't just, because a lot of companies, a lot of large corporations, if you create something really novel like I did and they want it and they don't want to buy it, they just want to take it. Even if I had a utility patent, like sometimes they just take it anyway because they're betting that you don't have the money to sue them.
Exactly.
And that's not right. It's just not right. So, as I'm doing these appearances and I'm talking about this sort of conduct, I really do hope to start a conversation within the business community that changes sort of the ecosystem and reverses it in a way that's beneficial to smaller creators and not just larger corporations. Larger corporations have endless resources, and this is part of their business model to just take concepts and grow their businesses that way. And it's not fair to smaller creators who are just trying to build what they've built. They started from something very, very small, and they have the benefit of it not being taken from them. And so as I'm doing sort of, and I'm kind of going in on my background, that's really kind of a strong message that I want your listeners to take away, is just like keep having those conversations that small creators matter, that they are of value, and what they create just because they have limited resources is not up for grabs.
It's tough though, because you can't control that per se, because that's a big world like the corporate and politics, and you can't control that per se. I'm kind of curious if you were to go like back in time, the same process, I guess, right? Because you can't change what happened really, because you wouldn't have known to like do X, Y, and Z to change that, right?
Yeah. So I think if I could go back, I mean, I did not get good legal advice. My patent attorney tried to talk me out of a design patent because, again, she's like, this is such a common product. I don't think you're going to get a design patent. And I said, you just have to trust me. It doesn't exist. I've done the patent searches. I've looked in market. She was really surprised when I got a design patent, but she still talked me out of that utility patent. And
it's kind of odd for her to care, I guess.
Because, I mean, attorneys, they love to talk about how expensive everything is.
Right.
And in a way, ironically, that oftentimes talks you out of something. And so she's, in her experience, she's expensive to file a utility patent. It's expensive to draft all the claims because, the attorney's not drafting it. You have to hire an artist to draft everything. That's expensive. It's a long process. It could be multiple thousands of dollars, and you could just get a no, and
really? Didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, utility patents absolutely more.
Takes like 6 months too, right? To like file it and like your like response back about that time. Or is it
Yeah,
like more time than that?
yeah. I forget how long. I feel like my design patent took about a year to hear back.
Question. So why only one patent? Do you wish you had done maybe like 3 or 4 patents, like looking back on it now?
Mm,
Or no?
that's an interesting question. I mean, um, I don't know that multiple design patents would have protected me in any way. My
Yeah,
one
fair
design,
enough.
yeah, my one design patent didn't protect me. Now, I definitely wish I would have not listened to her and gone for the utility patent.
Because they
Um,
copied you when you first created the product and then made their own patent afterwards, it sounds like.
yeah, because so again, if okay, we have competing products in market, that sucks. But let's say I, was able to recruit another investor by the, and we're like trying to compete with our product versus their product. And let's say I'm successful with that, then they could, because they have a utility patent, because both of our products, even though they look different, they function the same.
Right.
I would be infringing on my own design in market that they have a patent on. And so they could put me out of business the second time. And good luck finding an investor, by the way. He's like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm totally going to invest in scaling this when we're technically infringing on that corporation's patent. So yeah, I mean and really that is what legally kind of put a fire under me. I thought I have to find a way to pursue this unfairness because again, even if I wanted to compete, I can't. They own it. They own it now.
So if you were to change things, what would you change? Like what criteria? Like they have to be like this size of that company and like X amount of like dollars. What would you change personally? Like
Well,
the whole system.
oh yeah. Well, how would I change the system? Oh,
Right. Yeah. Which is just a big question, but I'm just curious.
such a big question. I mean, I think that there has to be some kind of movement where there's corporate responsibility. When I found out that this corporation got a utility patent, I reached out to them directly because I said,
Really?
yeah, I sent them sort of an open letter about what happened to me,
Hmm.
and I called out their hypocrisy because in their annual report they talk about or all over their marketing materials they're talking about supporting women in business and women in high level positions and minorities in business, and then but this kind of stuff is happening behind the scenes, right? And so I think that there has to be some kind of movement surrounding corporate responsibility. I think
Right.
um, it's a really scary thing. These are really big companies, oftentimes private equity backed. So we're talking about money on the highest levels. And so, for every one of me that fights, there's like thousands that are too scared. They would never do anything.
Oh, yeah,
They
easy.
just go away. And so like, let's have a conversation about really the right thing to do is if you want something, you buy it. You don't just take it. Right. So, I think that just even, talking about it on a larger scale will alter the ecosystem a little bit. I mean, what else could we change? I definitely the patent process does not benefit and it doesn't cater to creators and small business owners.
It
Um,
takes so long.
it takes so long and it's so complex and it requires such expensive assistance. I just feel like there could be more resources for, creators to or for small business owners or minority business owners to navigate that process in a more economical way. And then, by the way, once they get a patent, like let's not make it so easy for companies to come in and just because of one little tweak of a design, like they can own something identical to yours almost. So I think there's a lot of patent reform that can be done. I don't specialize in that area. I have colleagues who are fighting the good fight, lobbying on Capitol Hill, lobbying congressmen, because right now it definitely is a process and an institution that benefits corporations over
Right.
creators. And again, yeah, I think I think that's going to be a legislative issue that we need to continue working on.
which is happening here, but that doesn't count, like China, Japan, and they don't care at all about your product. They'll copy it, and there's no lawsuit that you can do to them legally. They're like
Yeah.
separate from us. So that's a problem too.
You know, with all of my businesses I've sourced in China. I'm a big proponent of it in the
Hmm.
beginning because they'll work with you no matter your size. If you're
Right.
just like a one man creator, like you just started a small business and you need a prototype, like there's so many companies over there that will help you throughout that entire process. Now, um, yeah, I mean, and there are legal protections you can put in place that definitely apply there. But like, let's say you even
Can
have,
you from China?
yeah, so like, I was just on another podcast. They don't have NDAs, but they have NNN agreements, three N's. And if they're
Hmm.
non-compete, yeah, they're non-compete, non-circumvent, and and I forget what the third N is, but like, it's confidentiality. And so, um,
Do you pay for each one of those separately? Do you know, like per product, or is it like a one like clause, I guess, for the whole thing?
no. So it's just an agreement that you would draft and execute with your factory.
Interesting.
Now listen, if you have a supplier that violates that, are you going to go over to China and like sue them? Probably not. But I don't know. I haven't had that negative experience. I think you just have to find the right partner who's
Right.
interested in growing with you. And I think if you really get to a significant size, maybe yeah, start to produce like domestically. But producing domestically is so much more expensive in the beginning. And like our factories here, like we don't have small mom and pop factories who can get you off the ground like China does. So I think if you're doing enough volume that you can constitute maybe that more expensive manufacturing process and you want more control over your product, you can do that. But um, I think in the beginning, you really don't have much of a choice
The
but to,
funds, you can't like pay for it. There's just no way.
yeah,
I'm curious
yeah.
because you pivoted from the clothing to this, but
Mhm.
the clothing had no patent though, right? So there's no that could like sue you per se. So you had those like 17 plus years where you're almost kind of safe in that way. I mean, you had different problems, I'm sure, come up, but it was less problems like illegally then, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely went through something similar with my clothing company, believe it or
Did
not.
you?
Yeah, but I did have a loyal factory, and I was able to sort of settle that without like legal action. Um, Corporate piracy is everywhere. Sorry, it just is, especially if you're creating something cool. Um, yeah, you can't, and that I dealt. I struggled with that in the beginning a lot because I'm like, because copying apparel is totally legal. You cannot patent apparel. You can't
Right.
copyright apparel. You can't trademark apparel. There is no protection in that. The only thing you can protect is like, yeah, if you've got a logo or something very, very novel. I remember, I think Jimmy Choo shoes went through something similar with the red soles on the bottom. They were able to protect it. But generally speaking, there's no protections. And so um, your product has to be, in my opinion, um, this is the way I approached it. It has to be really hard to replicate, which means it has to be really high quality. And the development of the line, we're not talking just t-shirts, like screen printed t-shirts, has to be uh, impressive. My
Right.
sweaters were not easy to replicate. It would take, like, even the corporation that tried to steal my designs, and I remember seeing their designs and their samples, and they were so bad compared to mine. Um, we just
Well, and branding too. Someone can't copy like your brand, like the whole like Nike or like Apple. You can't
Yeah,
copy their brand or their like culture, and you had your own culture for like these students. It sounds like.
this is what I say to anyone who's like, how do I protect myself in market from competition or someone like knocking me off? You can't, if you have a strong brand and you have a strong following, that's hard. That's hard to compete with. And the only way you're going to get that is through good product. And so I think in my mind, that's your greatest protection. Like all day long, patents are important, NDAs are important. But if it's inevitable that there's going to be a copycat product of market in yours, then it's really that brand equity that can pull you through that competition and that difficulty. And
Right.
that's not built overnight. Okay. Like
It seems how fast you go too. But if you have some thought, you have to be able to like go pretty quick for the whole like scaling process. If like you're a company, if you have like enough people like wearing the whole product, people would know like the brand's out there.
Mhm.
But if you wait 10 years, people can like copy you very quickly then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is kind of I talk about this with my lawsuit. If a large corporation is going to knock off your product,
Mhm.
that takes time. It doesn't really happen overnight. With my product, for a corporation to be able to do that in a matter of months, in my mind, I'm alleging, proves that they had my product in hand when they shouldn't have. Because, first of all, you're flying under the radar for the most part with a lot of these corporations. They're running their own businesses, and it's not really until, if you have a good quality product, like, you're going to get knocked off.
Right.
But at that point, you're probably in market for a while, and now you're on their radar because you're chipping away at sales, like barely.
Hmm.
I was completely under the radar, like not selling at all in market, and suddenly they have the exact same product as me, and they have the exact same marketing as me. Like, that's not a coincidence, right?
Right.
But if you do have listeners who are like, yeah, I'm a little worried about how am I going to compete in market once this gets big, that's usually years down the road. And you better have been during those years not only selling, but building your brand equity. And that's customer service. That's like, communicating with your customers, your clients. That's like marketing. It's all sorts of things.
Do you have tips for the whole scaling process? Because it's one thing to have one thing, like a one-man team, but to have like a whole group of people following you. Do you have
Yeah.
tips for trying to like scale from here to here for a
Yeah.
company?
So my business model was mostly B2B. I never really did direct to consumer.
Is
So
that easier, you think, or is it just like a different like process
in
selling to
my
other
mind, it's
companies?
easier. In my mind, it's easier if you're looking for just revenue,
Because
because
you make like 10 calls, maybe like one gets back to you, get like a lot of sales to that one company, right?
yeah. So yeah. So my businesses were a wholesale model.
Hmm.
It just made the most sense with my first business because licensed apparel, and this isn't going to apply to every product, just for my product, because we had the logistics of producing the clothes. We had the logistics of, sourcing, manufacturing, shipping them here, and getting them into warehouses. We also had the logistics of the licensing component. So, like, we had to work hand in hand with every single school on every single design, and they had to be approved. And then whatever was
Wow.
sold, we had to pay royalties on. Like, it's a very complex business. So the last thing I wanted to do was add complexity to that business by going direct to consumer. I thought, I'm just going to go to the retailers and the larger established businesses who can stock us. And if it's a good product, people will keep buying, and word of mouth will like snowball because, we had so many licenses. And so that to me was an easier model. Amazon could get us in way more houses, right, than like we could by ourselves on our website. And
Right.
so, but I think this is important because you can't just, at least with that model, you don't like hit it out of the park right away. I sold local. I sold local as much as I could. Like, I went down on campus to the family owned like merchandise stores. Those still exist. They're probably not as much anymore, but back then, like, I went to the university. The university, for example, has a merchandise shop in the hospital, in the university hospital, and we would stock there. And like, what I would say to your listeners is like, sales matter and track records matter. So now I can go to like Lids, or I can go to Amazon, or I can go to Fanatics. I can go to a much larger customer and say, hey, these are the sales I have. They're selling out. I have a track record. Take a chance on me on 5 schools. Take a chance on me on 10 schools. And
Right.
so,
But back then, though, you had none of that. So I'm curious your like sales process. Could you go to some small company and you tell them what? Because you have no sales yet, right?
well,
Or at least you have like some sales, but it's not like a big company yet. Like
no,
branch.
no. Honestly, because we had the license, that said a lot. Licenses are really hard to get. So if you walk in the door and you're like, hey, I have Ohio State gear, they're saying, wow, the university sees something they can make money on. I had that advantage in licensed apparel. Also, another reason why I went into it. Like, not just anyone can go in there and try to sell an Ohio State shirt. You have to be a licensee. They can't stock you unless you're a licensee. Licensing was probably the hardest part over sales, because
Is that a pretty big process?
oh my gosh, yeah, so crazy. Like, you have to apply, you have to disclose everything about your operation, everything about your factories, everything about your designs.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like, and really, you're kind of selling the concept to the university, just like you would be selling a customer. Like, why are these going to sell? How are these going to generate royalties for you? Now, we had a very, very unique product. So once we got a couple under our belt, the licensing process became very, very easy. The sales process became very, very easy. If
And
you
then you pay them per unit sold, right?
Yeah,
To like the
yeah.
school?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So that's how the schools make royalties. And I'm really proud of that business, because honestly, Nike's in that business, Adidas is in that business, like the largest companies on the planet in
Right.
apparel. And like suddenly we were like competing with them, not on any crazy level, but like it was cool to see my products right next to Nike products in the stores around town.
Right.
So I would say, so licensed apparel is very unique, very niche. There's a lot of benefits to moving parts working together. I've got a license that helps my sales. I'm selling because I have a license. Like, if you have listeners who, like, let's just say they have like a random, I don't know, Amazon product that they want to scale, or you have listeners who are like, I want to start a business. I don't really know what. I don't know what I want to create. My advice is sales come much, much easier if you're operating in an industry or a sector that is behind the times, that is pretty sleepy, that is pretty antiquated. That's a lower barrier of entry. If you want to go, sell your version of like pop sockets for phones, like, don't quit your day job. Like, that's not even a smart, like those, certainly there are brands and products that scale in a like a weirdish, like crazy way, but that doesn't happen often. So it sounds really, really obvious, but create something novel. Don't recreate someone else's product. I think that's
What's
why.
tough is that costs money to have like your own like design and product. I'm curious your thoughts on like funding. Like, should someone get funding, go into debts? Like, your thoughts on like the starting process there.
Yeah, well, listen, you can't build a business without money, but you don't need as much as you think. I didn't start either of my businesses with a ton of money. In the beginning of my apparel company, I had a friend, and I think I probably paid her like $50. She was a graphic designer. I'm like, I have these ideas of sweaters like in my head. Can you sketch them? And then I literally took those sketches to factories in China. I had a couple companies who, because they want your business, they put together a prototype for free. I think I like paid for the shipping, or you pay like $20 for samples. And so pretty cheaply I got, and after like maybe like 2 or 3 factories, I found the right one who I worked with till the end. And so in the beginning of a business, you have to wear every hat. You really do.
Right.
Don't, I think people get overwhelmed with thinking like, well, I got to get a lawyer. I got to start an LLC. I got to do this. I got to do that. It all takes money, 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 money. I say it all the time. If you're properly funded in the beginning, it's a crime. It does not teach discipline. It doesn't teach endurance. It doesn't teach creative thinking. Those are all traits that you're going to need as your business grows. So actually embrace the shoestring budget. Embrace it. And it's certainly with technology. Anyone can start a business these days. Like you really don't have to make it more complex than it is. So in my case, with my lid, for example, I found a local engineer 20 minutes from my house.
Wow.
That helped me build the prototype, because back then he had, I mean, they're much more common now, but back then he had a 3D, printer, and we were able to work together on it, for a totally, for a, I wouldn't say cheap amount, but it was affordable. It was definitely affordable. And then I found another guy who, finalized the prototype for me. And I don't even think I paid him. I think in return for like him being listed as a co-inventor, he did it. There's just ways to barter and negotiate, things like that. And then the tooling in China it's not $500,000 like it is here, So you will get to a point. I did get to a point with my apparel company where I had to raise money. I had to bring on investors.
Is that kind of scary? It's more like pressure then? Because if you fail, then they fail too, right?
I mean, I've in some way or another have failed all of my investors in some way. Like, you're gonna fail. You're also gonna succeed. Like, you can't be afraid of that. Also, I was so damn excited about my products that fundraising for me was not daunting. You have to have that passion behind your product, because honestly, that's what investors want to see. They're expecting for half of their investments to lose them money, maybe even more. But if they see your excitement and your passion behind your product, they're like, that's enough to find a new way to slice bread. Like, that's enough. That passion and urgency is enough to sometimes make the worst business idea the best corporation. So like, you have to be really excited about what you're creating and what you're selling. I think that eases a lot of angst in the beginning.
I'm curious, if you do fail like an investor, what happens then? Do you just like pivot, or do you just like tell them like, hey, I'll like pay you back later? Like that kind of talk?
It just depends on the investor. I mean, a lot of
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of investors just write off the losses.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, no one is batting, 100 at investments. And, investors take on equity in your company. So if they take on equity in your company and the company turns into nothing, like that's not the same as them loaning you money and you pay them back, right? I mean, equity fundraising is definitely the way to go, in my opinion, once you're growing at either a rapid pace or you've got really, really healthy growth.
It became kind of stressful, it sounds like, because like the scaling process became a lot for you, it sounds like, right?
So basically, I grew that company to the point where it needed tens of millions of dollars to succeed. And
really? Wow.
because we had so many licenses, we had Amazon whose buyer was saying yes to every single new design we were putting in front of her. It was like we were promising more than we could deliver because we just weren't capitalized for it. And honestly, my investors back then, I don't think it was such a long time ago and I'm not speaking for them, but like, I don't think they were signed up for that level of a company. And so, yeah, we just weren't properly capitalized. And so it was to a point where I was like, well, I see it growing this way. They saw it growing this way. And, they.
But you're still the boss. You make the calls still, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're always the boss. And investors know that. But I think a good boss, respects the team.
Right.
And really what's best for the company. And definitely me continuing to grow it in the way that I saw it growing. Because it doesn't mean that I was wrong. We just weren't set up for that. And so that's why
Maybe it grew too fast. Is that what you think?
Yeah, we definitely grew too fast. I think we just got way too excited about the prospects. And like I said, because it's such a logistically such a complex business, and it needed so much money. Like it really needed, you have to remember that I started an apparel company. I wasn't a fashion design major. I wasn't even a business major,
Right. History,
So,
right?
yeah, there's just a lot I didn't know about growing an apparel business. And it was definitely time for someone else to step in by the time I left.
Which is, I think, good to know when like your strengths maybe are somewhere else. Because you have the different phases for company, like the starting phase, scaling phase, selling it maybe.
Yeah.
So that makes sense there.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people or a lot of business owners put a ton of emotion into their businesses, rightfully so. Like that's my baby. But, you can't go down with the ship. Like it's not wise. You always, at every step of your business, have to be honest with
Plus,
yourself.
it had been so long. It had been what you said, like 17 years of like your life in this one baby.
It had been like 12 years.
Wow.
By the time, yeah, I
So you're
left.
probably almost done with like the process. You want to like move on to something else, maybe. It sounds like at that
totally
point.
was done. I just thought I'm spending more effort on learning how to run this than running it. And that's a disservice to the company. It's a disservice to me,
Good point.
Yeah, I'm like, know what you don't know. And it's okay for the early part of your business to be grounds for learning. When your company is aged and it's selling and you have customers and there's capital involved, that's a very short leash for like learning on the job, in my opinion. That's when you bring on someone. I mean, I know so many I know companies, quite large brands, where the founder is kind of still just the creative director and they're not the CEO. And it ended up being the smartest thing for that company. And that's, in hindsight, I wish I would have kind of done earlier. I wish way earlier when I took on that second round of capital that I had hired a CEO and I just continued to create for the business. That would have been the smartest.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Do you plan to start more companies or probably not?
Yeah, no, I already have another company. I mean, I'm in almost year 3 of this litigation. Unfortunately,
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time, really. And it's taken a lot of effort. It's taken a lot of emotion. And so
Do you plan to cut it soon or probably not for the whole 3 years to say that let's go to year 5 and stop it, or no?
Yeah, it's just there's a lot pending in the courts right now, so it's not really in my control.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, but it's funny that you asked because I started doing podcast appearances and I've started my own, I just thought, how can I've been fighting this fight. It's really ugly. It's debilitating stuff. Like, how do I spend my time positively? And I mean, I cannot tell you how many people, friends, colleagues, people I just meet at soccer, parents, like, I thought about starting a business one time. I thought about doing this. I thought about doing this on the side. And like, I get it all the time. And so, as I said in the beginning, definitely want to be here as a voice against corporate piracy. Let creators know that if this has happened to you, you're not alone. There's avenues for you to, to right the wrong. But also, the platform that I started is called Brain on Loan. And it's actually not, I wouldn't consider it a business. I'm not doing it to like try to grow some big brand and make money on it. It's just, I wouldn't even call it an advice podcast as much as I would, categorize it as like creative thinking and the traits that I've gained as a business owner, wearing every hat from the beginning to just an idea to a really complex, like running a business. I just think entrepreneurs have a unique ability to organize and unpack, stressful or complicated situations like way better than maybe just like a regular person. And so literally Brain on Loan is just my brain on loan to my listeners. You can write in, people can write in through my site. They submit questions and like, I just on air answer them. It could be, I want to start an LLC. I don't know how. It could be, I want to sell my business. I don't know even where to start. It could be like something personal, like a personal struggle, or I'm in a rut of life. Like I just, I give this example a lot. My sister was engaged to be married and she was getting really overwhelmed with the wedding planning and kind of she was on the fence about just getting married at all, like in a church and having a reception, just like wanted to go to the courthouse. And I went back to Ohio to just help her plan. And I said, just forget all that. Like get married this weekend. Like dad's got a great backyard, get married this weekend. I planned a wedding in 48 hours. Like and I've never seen her happier. It was tremendous. But like my point is with that story is like, that's not hard for me. That stuff's not hard for me. And that doesn't make me better or worse than anyone. It's just, I think that because I've been through the successes and failures of my businesses, that I have valuable things to share, including just how to creatively think your way through a situation, maybe where you feel stuck. You feel stuck in business, you feel stuck in life. And so I've started that platform. I have a guest every week who just, in any given facet, is like great in their industry. I've met so many business owners and like neat people over the years and through all my experiences. And so, I just want to give back in that way. And then, my real passion, and I hope my legacy business will be my film and television production company. I've started a production company. I went back to school.
My goodness. Wow.
To study writing and directing because I've always been a passion of mine. I've had so many comical experiences as a female entrepreneur. So I've written a series kind of loosely based on that.
So you have a book series, you have a TV series, you have your product for that, and you also have the clothing thing. You're just, wow.
Oh, I mean, listen, again, if someone wrote in and said, I like aliens and I want to start a business, I could think it up right then and there. I don't know. I have just like a disease called serial entrepreneurism. Like I can't stop generating ideas in my head.
Curious. So is your goal like movies for the film, like production?
Film and television, scripted, unscripted. Yeah. But again, right now, kind of loosely just based on my experience as an entrepreneur, I think that's the best way to write. I think that's the best way to create is to just like look in and kind of, just kind of based on my experience. But I mean, I would love to expand further beyond that.
Wow. You've been fantastic. I'm curious for like your last thoughts to the audience, like your last takeaway, like your last message that you would say to the audience, what that would be.
Yeah, my favorite message is, I don't want to scare, especially if you have listeners who are entrepreneurs and they hear my legal battle and they're like, oh, I don't want to scare anyone. Because my biggest piece of advice, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're just getting through life, is to embrace every painful setback that you experience. You're starting a business. Expect it, anticipate it with joy. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I cannot say, I think that success stories are boring. I think failures are sensational to talk about because it grows us as people. It grows our businesses. Like, it's always better on the other side of anything you're going through. So embrace pain, embrace setbacks. You will grow as a person, and don't be afraid to fail. I am so passionate about that.
If people want to find you online, where can they go to?
Yeah, just like it sounds, Brain on Loan. Brain on Loan. If you have a question for me about your business, about life, yeah, you can submit it. I've already got tons of listeners just submitting questions. Oh, and I love it. I can't wait to dig in because there's so many questions and I'm like, yes, I've been there and I know exactly what to tell you to do. And so, yeah, keep in mind, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I'm not an accountant, right? But I will give you valuable information just based on what's worked for me. So brainonloan.com.
There you go. Well, guys, go follow her podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, stay hungry.